Yeah, more than courage, I think it was privilege. Like I could do it because somebody else was paying the bill, so I could take that step. So yeah, coming back to this. So this is probably the most popular Julia Child quote that you would have read, come across in cafes, menus, like all other places. But there's another one from the book that stayed with me, which was never apologize for your cooking. And I'll read a bit from the book to give it more context, okay? So, in spite of my good notices, I remained a long way from being a maître de cuisine. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. It's French, so pardon my French, as they say. Okay, so this was made plain the day I invited my friend Winnie for lunch and managed to serve her the most vile egg Florentine one could imagine outside of England. I suppose I had gotten a little too self-confident for my own good. Rather than measure out the flour, I had guessed at the proportions, and the result was a goopy sauce mornay. Unable to find spinach at the market, I had bought chicory instead. It too was horrid. We ate the lunch with painful politeness and avoided discussing its taste. I made sure not to apologize for it. This was a rule of mine. I don't believe in twisting yourself into knots of excuses and explanations over the food you make. When one's hostess starts in with self-deprecation such as, oh, I don't know how to cook, or poor little me, or this may taste awful, it is so dreadful to have to reassure her that everything is delicious and fine, whether it is or not. Besides, such admissions only draw attention to one's shortcomings or self-perceived shortcomings, and make the other person think, yes, you're right, this really is an awful meal. Maybe the cat has fallen into this too, or the lettuce has frozen, or the cake has collapsed. Usually, one's cooking is better than one thinks it is, and if the food is truly vile, as my eggs Florentine surely were, then the cook must simply grit her teeth, bear it with a smile, and learn from her mistakes. So this is Julia Child for you. So, like how someone comes over and you say, oh, don't, just don't mind the mess. And the only thing it does is, people start noticing the mess or lack thereof or whatever. Okay, so this is her autobiography. And it starts around the time, as the name suggests, when Julia Child, along with her husband, travels to France. He's on an official appointment, and they're newly married, and they start exploring, experiencing, and inhaling everything that the city had to offer. They're just obsessed with everything that Paris had to offer, despite all the, shortcomings the city had, post-war city had, like electricity, infrastructure, and all those things. But she didn't focus on that. So it's set in post-war Paris, as I said, but the book is not focused on the destruction left by the war. Actually, her attitude towards war is, it is what it is, what are you going to do? And it's not out of privilege or ignorance, okay? Like, she was part of the organization, which is now called CIA. So she was aware, like, what war does, what war is, and she was part of the action. But she just wouldn't focus on it. So that's just her personality. And so its book is about, like, incredibly resilient bunch of people who not only survived, but made the best of the situation and gave hope to everyone else. And this is a term I came across when I was looking for more books to read from the same genre. And like everybody else who's obsessed with France the way Julia Child was. So these are some of the other recommendations. I've not read all, but few I have. I mean, you can share the... Oh, and okay, lastly, this is a very famous cake recipe by her. It's fairly straightforward as opposed to her other long-drawn recipes with hard-to-get ingredients. And it's easily available on Google. Give it a try. You won't be disappointed and never fails to impress your guests. Yeah, thank you.